Imagine a classic stage farce. You have like a panicked protagonist desperately leaning against door number 1 to keep a lie hidden.
Right, while simultaneously trying to keep door number 2 firmly shut.
Exactly, to conceal a secret guest or something. The entire tension of the scene relies on the physical architecture of the room.
Yeah, who is standing where, what door is locked, that sort of thing.
But now imagine dragging that physical, compartmentalized anxiety kicking and screaming into the modern digital age. Welcome to the deep dive.
I'm really excited for this one.
Me too. Today, we are tearing apart a specific piece of source material. It's a script for a hyper-dramatic internet-era audio skit.
And on the surface, I mean, it really just reads like a disposable piece of internet content, right?
Totally. But our mission is to deconstruct this seemingly simple viral melodrama. We want to uncover the underlying mechanics of modern storytelling and look at our profound anxieties around digital privacy.
Not to mention the cold, hard architecture of the creator economy. Because when you slow down the pacing, you see a literal masterclass in manipulation and algorithmic optimization.
Okay, so let's set the baseline for you listening. The script drops us right into the middle of the action. We have our main character, Alex.
Right, and he is at home, allegedly studying completely alone.
Yeah, but he is standing at his front door acting deeply annoyed because a girl named Ruhi is actively forcing her way inside.
And Alex immediately plays the role of the gatekeeper here.
He does. He tells her, this is my house. Who invited you?
He is trying to manufacture this high ground boundary, acting like he's doing her a favor by just kicking her out instead of embarrassing her.
Right, because he wants to maintain the illusion of control by weaponizing his physical territory.
Exactly. In his mind, he is the director of his own life, keeping different social circles completely isolated from each other.
But Ruhi just pushes past him, and she delivers a line that instantly shatters his reality. She says, "I know exactly who's in there and what you're doing."
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is the moment.
And the script does not make us wait for the fallout. Right at that peak moment of physical tension, with Alex literally trying to block hallways, a second girl, Aditi, casually walks down the stairs.
Which completely inverts the power dynamic in a fraction of a second.
Yes, because in a traditional farce, this is the part where Alex would spend 20 minutes trying to hide Ruhi behind a couch.
Right, running around slamming doors.
But the script bypasses the hiding phase entirely. Aditi is perfectly calm and tells Alex to let Ruhi in because she invited her.
So Alex realizes the women have already communicated. They have breached his perimeter before the scene even started.
That physical boundary he was trying to defend at the front door is completely meaningless now.
Because his compartmentalized lies have already collapsed.
So the spatial tension in the room just skyrockets from here. Alex starts stuttering, he panics, and he announces he is going to lock the door.
Which is such a desperate move.
It really is. Ruhi scoffs and asks, locking the door. For what? To hide the evidence.
And she doesn't just wander around looking for clues, right?
No, she is very specific. She asks him what he is hiding behind the third door on the left.
I love that detail. The specificity of that phrase, the third door on the left, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
How so?
Well, it tells Alex and the audience that an investigation has already been concluded. She is not searching, she is retrieving.
Oh, that's a great point. So Alex physically grabs her arm, yelling that it's his parents' room. He's trying to use the concept of privacy to defend himself.
The irony there is thick.
Extremely. But Ruhi walks in and retrieves a smartphone. The grand reveal of the scene is that this phone was actively recording Alex and Aditi while they were supposedly studying upstairs.
So the conflict immediately shifts here.
Yeah, we go from a standard story about a guy getting caught in a lie to a much darker reality regarding digital surveillance.
Because the mechanism of the betrayal is crucial. The offense is not just infidelity anymore.
Right, it is the unauthorized extraction of a private moment.
Exactly. Alex was attempting to commodify his intimate interactions with Aditi without her consent.
And his reaction to being caught is what really gets me. He completely fractures. I mean, I don't get why he folds so fast.
What do you mean?
Well, a classic manipulator would spin this, right? They'd play the girls against each other or deny the context of the recording.
That's true. They usually try to maintain control.
But Alex instantly panics and starts throwing out these wildly contradictory excuses. First, he tells Aditi that Ruhi challenged him to prove Aditi would sleep with him.
Framing it as a twisted romantic gesture.
Exactly. He tries to reframe a massive privacy violation as this act of love for Aditi. But Ruhi just laughs in his face and calls him a psycho.
As she should.
And then Aditi slaps him. The script actually calls for a sharp slap sound effect here.
That's a huge turning point for his character.
It really is. The
Yes.
second he gets hit, Alex violently abandons the whole I dated out of love angle.
He pivots to attacking Ruhi instead, right?
Yeah, he calls her obsessed and jealous, and finally claims Aditi was just a distraction to get to Ruhi.
So he just burns the whole narrative down.
Literally in seconds. So I have to ask you, why does he instantly abandon his own narrative instead of leaning into the manipulation? Does this highlight a specific trope of the narcissistic antagonist cornered by his own evidence?
It absolutely does, and it all comes down to the object in Rui's hand. Analog manipulators rely on gaslighting, which requires them to maintain a monopoly on reality.
Right, controlling the narrative.
Exactly. In the past, someone like Alex could have planted seeds of doubt, isolated the victims, and manipulated their perception of events using just his words and his confidence.
But digital evidence completely democratizes reality.
Yes. The smartphone in this scene acts as an undeniable arbiter of truth. The glowing screen strips him of his primary weapon.
So he can't lie his way out of it.
No, he can't. He cycles frantically through different tactics, romantic framing, shifting blame, aggressive projection, all because his traditional tools of deception have been neutralized by objective proof.
He's throwing spaghetti at the wall because the wall is a high-definition video recording he can't argue with.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And if you're listening to this and thinking the climax has already happened, like the bad guy is caught, the evidence is secured, the victims are leaving, well, the script completely pulls the rug out.
Oh, this is where it gets really crazy.
It really does. Aditi coldly tells Alex they are done, and the girls walk out the door. But the scope of the betrayal is about to expand exponentially.
We are moving from a localized domestic dispute to an omniscient revenge plot.
Exactly. Because right then, Alex's phone rings.
Yeah.
He picks it up, and it's a girl named Isha.
The third act twist introduces an entirely new scale of surveillance.
It does. Now, earlier in the script, Aditi briefly mentioned inviting Isha to this confrontation, but said Isha was busy.
But we find out she was busy operating an entirely different level of espionage.
Yeah, she calls simply to mock Alex's bruised ego, asking if he needs ice for the slap. Then she drops the hammer.
The ultimate twist.
She told him she was the one who planted the cameras in his house. Cameras in places you wouldn't believe, she says.
It forces a complete reevaluation of the narrative hierarchy. Everything we thought we knew about the power dynamics is wrong.
Totally. And there is a brilliant meta-layer detail buried in the casting notes of the source text that changes how you interpret this entire production.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It's so good. The script explicitly dictates that the actress voicing Ruhi, the actress voicing Aditi, and the actress voicing Isha on the phone are all the exact same person. An actress named Jess.
Which is just a fascinating choice.
It's reminiscent of Eddie Murphy playing the entire dinner table in The Nutty Professor. But here, it's deployed for psychological pressure. It represents this unified front of female vengeance.
Right, literally one voice dismantling the antagonist. It creates a sense of an inescapable monolith.
From a production standpoint, it might seem like a simple efficiency, paying one voice actor instead of three.
But psychologically, it surrounds the antagonist completely. Every direction Alex turns, every relationship he tries to manipulate, he is met with the exact same voice dismantling him.
He is literally surrounded. And Isha's dialogue during the phone call really cements this. She tells him she has seen everything.
She even brings up a fourth girl, Sakshi, just to demonstrate the depth of her surveillance.
Yeah, and she uses this highly specific phrasing. She says, "Honey, I was the one holding the controller."
That phrase unlocks the thematic core of the narrative. The observer effect has been totally flipped.
How so?
Well, up until this phone call, Alex believed he was the architect of the surveillance. He thought he was secretly recording, pulling the strings from the shatters.
But Isha reveals that his perceived control was just an illusion.
Exactly. He was merely an observed subject within her panopticon. She took his specific method of violation, the hidden cameras, and scaled it up.
Weaponizing his own tactics against him.
Yes. She informs him that the footage has already been distributed to everyone they know, and then she signs off with a theatrical proverb about a rolling stone rolling right into the gutter.
It is incredibly dramatic.
Yeah.
The script direction calls for Alex to be left alone, screaming, "I hate this," to the ceiling.
A very cinematic ending for his character.
It is.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, I need to pause here and look at what has actually happened.
Let's look at it.
Alex is clearly in the wrong, right? Recording Aditi without her consent is a massive violation. But Isha just called him and gleefully confessed to infiltrating his home, planting multiple hidden cameras in highly private areas, recording him constantly, and distributing that footage to their entire social circle.
Which is a lot to unpack.
Hasn't the supposed hero of the story just committed a massive, potentially illegal privacy violation on a much larger scale?
That is a completely valid pushback. If we look at this impartially, in the real world, Isha's actions constitute severe criminal offenses.
Like felony wiretap?
Most likely, yes. Felony wiretapping and the distribution of non-consensual recordings. But we're analyzing the internal logic of an internet melodrama here.
Meaning real-world rules don't apply.
Exactly. This ecosystem does not operate on real-world ethics, healthy boundaries, or legal frameworks.
Because healthy boundaries don't go viral. I mean, if Isha just called the police or told Aditi to block his number, the story ends in 30 seconds.
Right. The internet demands the spectacle of total social annihilation. In this specific genre of storytelling, justice is exclusively portrayed through disproportionate public retribution.
So the punishment has to vastly exceed the crime in theatricality.
Yes, the spectacle of his ruin is the point. The script prioritizes the visceral satisfaction of a massive gotcha moment over any semblance of ethical consistency.
Even if it means the hero is technically committing crimes.
Precisely. The audience is conditioned to cheer for Isha because she out-manipulated the manipulator. The sheer scale of her retaliation is framed as a triumph rather than a terrifying invasion of privacy.
And that terrifying scale brings us to the absolute crescendo of the script, which is where the structural whiplash kicks in.
The transition here is wild.
It really is. So Alex is screaming in pure cinematic anguish. A young man's life is entirely ruined. And then, instantly, with zero transition, the actors drop character.
The illusion of the narrative is abruptly severed.
Completely. The guy who's just screaming at the ceiling is suddenly cheerful. He says, wow, that was intense. If you guys enjoyed that absolute train wreck of a story, do us a huge favor.
And then Jess chimes in right away.
Yeah, she says, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. They start asking for super thanks and memberships to support the channel.
We go from severe emotional trauma to a monetization pitch in a literal second.
It gave me whiplash just reading it.
But this outro is the Rosetta Stone for the entire artifact. It reveals the true nature of the source material.
How so?
Well, we are not just analyzing a fictional story about infidelity and hidden cameras. We are looking at the raw, exposed wiring of the modern creator economy.
Right, the narrative itself, the betrayals, the spatial tension, the shocking reveals, the massive privacy violations.
It is all simply packaging.
They explicitly call it a train wreck in the script. They know exactly what they built.
They built a machine engineered to capture and hold human attention. This is an algorithm-optimized train wreck designed specifically to generate clicks, comments, and monetization.
So every plot twist was just a hook.
Exactly. The pacing, the dramatic twists, and especially the moral ambiguity we just talked about, they are all reverse engineered to keep the listener engaged just long enough to reach the calls to action.
We can compare this ecosystem to a digital coliseum then.
I think that's a great analogy. The algorithm functions as the emperor, demanding constant engagement.
And Alex isn't just a flawed character. He is a gladiator fed to the lions for public entertainment.
Because the creators know the audience will always offer a thumbs up to a public execution, especially when it involves themes of infidelity and digital revenge.
The engagement bait they use in the outro proves this perfectly. Jess turns to the audience and asks, who was the real villain? Alex or the girl's master plan?
They take the exact ethical dilemma we just discussed, Isha's disproportionate retaliation, and they actively commodify it.
They want people fighting in the comments section. Because friction generates watch time.
And watch time generates revenue.
So when Isha declares she was the one holding the controller, she is actually wrong.
She is fundamentally incorrect. The character of Isha is not in control. The metrics of the platform hold the real controller.
Wow.
The severity of the drama, the escalation of the surveillance, the disproportionate revenge, these elements are all dictated by the algorithm's appetite for rage and shock value.
The creators are simply optimizing their script to feed that appetite.
Exactly. It's an engine.
So what does a deep dive into an audio skit actually mean for you listening right now?
It's a question of relevance.
Exactly. It matters because this is the water we swim in. Whether you are scrolling through short-form videos while waiting for a coffee or binge-watching a new serialized drama, You are constantly immersed in this architecture.
We are constantly consuming narratives that deliberately blur the line between highly intimate interpersonal trauma and engineered engagement bait.
And understanding the mechanics of how these scripts are built, how they use rapid pacing, flip the observer dynamic, and manufacture moral outrage, it makes you a significantly sharper, more media-literate consumer.
You stop just reacting to the drama and start seeing the underlying code of the digital coliseum.
Recognizing the difference between a narrative exploring genuine human experience and a narrative designed strictly to trigger an emotional reflex is essential.
Because when you understand the economic incentives driving the spectacle, the manipulative power of the content diminishes.
It brings us back to the image of the classic stage farce we started with. But the doors aren't physical anymore, they're digital.
And the audience isn't just passively watching a play.
Right. You are paying for the spectacle with your attention, your data, and your emotional reactions.
It's a completely different economy.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, something to explore on your own long after this deep dive ends.
I think this is the most important takeaway.
If our daily entertainment relies so heavily on packaging severe privacy violations, hidden cameras, and digital revenge as casually consumable train wrecks that we actively fund through our super thanks and memberships and engagement metrics.
Right. What does that actually mean for us?
Exactly. What does that say about our own shifting boundaries in the real world? Are we slowly losing our sensitivity to actual real-world digital privacy?
Yeah.
Simply because the violation of that privacy makes for such incredibly good entertainment. Think about it.